Here we go!
Welcome to the Nintendo Power Zone. We are a video/podcast dedicated to bringing you the best Nintendo-related topics. As always, I'm your host, NyceOne, and joining me today is my co-host, Blooz. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, thank you. Always good to be on the show. I was just playing some Pokken. My Sceptile is still down pat. Happy to say so.
I suck at Pokken because I haven't played it in like a whole year, and I think that's as good as I'm going to get. Anyway, I'll also be playing Final Fantasy VII later this week, so yeah, okay. I'm going to be busy with my Switch. But I think today's episode is going to be a little bit of a shorter one, just because not a whole lot to talk about, but the topics that we do have, they are some heavy hitters. So without further ado, I think we might as well just go ahead and jump into the powered up news. And first things first, let's go ahead and talk a little about that Nindies Direct, because we had two surprises in that Direct. I thought the Direct was pretty good overall, but there were two standouts that I think we really have to talk about and what they mean for Nintendo. So first things first, they started the Nindies showcase with the reveal of Cuphead on the Nintendo Switch. This is really exciting news. If you guys don't know, I feel like you should know, Cuphead is an Xbox One exclusive. And I love the story behind this is that Xbox was like, we want you, the developer of Cuphead, to make this game on the Nintendo Switch. We want you to port it to the Switch. Xbox made that decision, not like the indie developer saying, hey, we want to move our game to a different platform because A, this isn't the best platform for this particular game because the Xbox One is currently sitting in last place, but because Microsoft made that decision. I think that is amazing. And it bridges like that friendship we've seen that Microsoft and Nintendo have been building with one another over the course of these last 2 years. That really seemed to get some steam when they allowed Minecraft to be playable on the Switch, and when they were very open to allowing crossplay in games like Rocket League and Fortnite. But this takes that relationship a whole step forward. This is a first party title. This is tantamount to Mario appearing on the Xbox One, essentially. But this is going obviously the other way around with Cuphead going on the Switch. This is fantastic news. I am super excited to play this game, not just on my home like TV, but on the go. Cuphead seems like the perfect game to play in handheld mode. What are your thoughts, man?
I mean, as a whole, I think just having this good relationship with the Nintendo is a very smart business decision for Microsoft. Just in terms of just having like the ability to say, hey, we have this exclusive game. We're gonna have our guys at it's RD. What's the studio's name? RD
MDHR Studio.
MDHR. Okay, so Mike, I forgot what I was saying, but I think it's really smart for Microsoft to have this relationship where they can be, hey, Nintendo, we want to get Cuphead on your systems because your system sells. You're doing it right, and we have this great game, but not many people are playing it. We can get that exposure that the game really deserves on your system. And I think that's a good omen for Microsoft getting that relationship so that they can be open to these things, maybe vice versa from Nintendo, learning things, getting that exposure so that maybe if once the Xbox 2 comes out, they can get these Nintendo fans to maybe bridge the gap. They like their services with Xbox Game Pass, Xbox Live. They like, seeing Cuphead. There's rumors about Ori and the Blind Forest. I'm personally hoping for Forza, but also the new Battletoads game to come to Switch as well.
Well, I like this because it kind of comes on the heels of like all those rumors that Xbox Live would be coming to the Switch in some capacity. Like there hasn't been a whole lot about that rumor since it initially came out. And obviously the release of Cuphead as a physical and digital title might put a little bit of a damper on it. But it's clear that Xbox wants to, or Microsoft rather, wants to explore the Switch as a possibility, which makes me wonder what their console plans are in the future. Do they intend to continue the route they're going, making their own console, or do they maybe want to do what Sega did and move into just purely software development? Like I said, I don't think Microsoft is really going anywhere in the console space, but it makes me wonder whether or not they want to be more open source than they've been in the past. I'm very excited about this. Obviously, Cuphead was a candidate for Game of the Year last year, so this is a pretty big title for the Nintendo Switch, and it coming out of nowhere like this just gets me super excited. I love this reveal, and I can't wait, man. I love the art style of Cuphead. I think the gameplay is supposed to be extraordinarily brutal, but I'm kind of looking forward to that right now. I think I need a little bit of a harder challenge with my platform style titles. So yeah, super amped about Cuphead. I cannot wait because it kind of bums me out to like see all this Cuphead merchandise and not buy it because like I don't really know what Cuphead is all about. Like all that stuff looks cool, but I'm not gonna buy anything that I have no invested interest in. And I think it might be cool to start adding some Cuphead stuff to my collection. That being said, though, I hope they add some stuff to the game to make it a little bit more personable to the Switch. Maybe a few extra levels, maybe like some weird, hey, toss Mario in the game and see how that works. Just something
Mario and Luigi hats for Cuphead and Mugman.
That would be perfect.
Simple, but have it in there. Maybe some mustaches too.
Yeah, just a little bit of extra content would be nice. Like, obviously, I'm pretty sure with the Cuphead art style, that would actually take a whole lot of integrating. They're gonna have to waste a lot of time and maybe a lot of money doing that. But
no, it's not worth them to make whole new like levels or bosses because every animation in that game is hand drawn by like the animation team they have is like stupidly large for Cuphead. I don't even want to look it up. But I know it's stupidly large.
Well, we're talking about a 2D platformer that took like 8 years to develop.
Yeah, it took a stupid amount of time. Yeah, that much I will tell you. But it's really just not worth it to add more for essentially the same game unless they're gonna charge a premium for it, like a DLC expansion that they're making the money back on.
Now, what's interesting is I can't wait. This game will come out in April. What will be interesting to see how well the game performs on the Switch hardware. And I'm not just talking about like from like a performance, like a gameplay standpoint. I'm talking about from a sales aspect. Are we going to see the numbers for Cuphead dwarf the numbers on the Xbox One? Because what we've been seeing lately is that multi party release games that get released on multiple systems, we're starting to see them sell better on the Switch than on other platforms. Now, say that what you will. Maybe it's because the Switch becomes more accessible because of its portability, but it is happening. We're seeing that titles that get released on multiple platforms, the Switch version is outselling the other consoles, and that was especially true with Starlink Battle for Atlas. Now, granted, there was more content, and it is the definitive air quotes edition of Starlink Battle for Atlas, but it did outsell. It outsold the other two consoles combined. So interesting. Well, sticking with this Indies Direct, I think the other thing that was of like real notoriety was the fact that a new Legend of Zelda game got announced, and it's very weird. So, for people who've played Crypt of the Necromancer, which is a Necrodancer, yes. I'm sorry. For people who've played that game, they know that it is a rhythm-based roguelike. And the studio that developed that, while in the midst of working on like an updated version of the game, they decided that it'd be cool to add like Legend of Zelda characters to it, and they showed it to Nintendo. And apparently, Nintendo Japan just said, "Just make a whole new game using the Legend of Zelda as the basis, and go ahead and take Cadence from Crypt of the Necrodancer and put her in the game, and take Link and take Zelda, and go to town with this game." And couple things of note here. Not only is this an independent developer working on a first-party Nintendo IP, which has never happened before. That's, like, put that in perspective. That's never happened before. But this will be the first time that Zelda, the character, is playable in a game that isn't tied to the CDI.
So Hyrule Warriors?
Well, no, not by an independent developer.
No, well,
and not like
I guess CDI was independent. You're right. No, W-Force. Okay, you're right. Okay. So we're looking at so many firsts here, and
I loved this trailer when they showed this trailer, and they had the remixes to like that Hyrule theme.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I was flipping out. I was like, oh my god, that looks amazing. I am super intrigued. Now, I'm seeing a lot of references to Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, especially like that overworld map is very similar. I'm excited about that, but there are also little bits of you start to see enemies from the Necrodancer series and from other Zelda games. So this is like a giant mishmash, and I love it. I love the idea of a roguelike Zelda game that's rhythm based. And if you paid real deep attention to that trailer, even things like the sword swinging
has to be done into the beat.
Yes, that was amazing. Just like, wow, I am intrigued by this game. I love the possibilities that this game has. I love what it means for like indie developers because, and I love what it just means for Nintendo. This is now the third time that we're seeing Nintendo allowing other studios to take the reins of their first party characters within a 2-year time span. The first obviously being
Mario Rabbids,
then
Starlink,
Star Fox and Starlink, and now The Legend of Zelda is going to be made by the team that brought you Crypt of the Necrodancer. This is all really exciting. What I hope it means, what I really hope this means, is that we may get the game we always should have got from Square Enix, like that Kingdom Hearts style game utilizing Mario characters. That being like, I love Mario RPG, but if you look at Mario RPG now, it's very much in a bubble. They didn't do anything too extraordinary with that game. How cool would it be to see Mario interacting with characters from Final Fantasy? I think that can happen now. I think what this means for Nintendo is that we're going to start to see a whole lot more crossover games utilizing first-party Nintendo IP. And dude, let's get it done. Let's get that done, man. Like that's super exciting. Aside from all that, though, Cadence of Hyrule, in and of itself, looks like the perfect portable game. Straight up, I was saying this earlier a couple weeks ago that I don't think there's necessarily a portable game, a game that makes me want to play in portable mode. Like there's not a game out that I have to play portable. But I see two now. I see Cuphead, and now I see Cadence of Hyrule, both of them indie games, and I think they both are gonna rock the Switch's world. So I love this news, man. Any additional thoughts?
So Crypt the Necrodancer, as NyceOne has stated before, it is a rhythm-based roguelike, and you can physically not move. You can only do any kind of action to the beat. So like you were saying before, the sword swings, the arrow shots, they all have to be done to the beat. You have to move to the beat, and it's very interesting, but it creates for a unique gameplay style, or you can see a lot in the trailer. You're always sort of hopping. You have to do the commands that you're doing in a pattern, which is just, it's a lot of fun. I'm not sure if you, NyceOne, have played the original roguelike one. Have you?
No, but I will definitely be playing it before Cadence of Hyrule comes out.
It is a lot of fun. I had one of my good friends introduced me to it, and it's really good. Beyond that, it's definitely huge to see this kind of crossover. It even if it's the third instance of Nintendo saying, hey, play with our IP, whatever, with Mario Rabbids and Starlink, it's definitely. Those are both games made by Ubisoft, a company that Nintendo can trust. They have a very, very good partnership with Ubisoft, even with Ubisoft being one of the sole supporters for the Wii U throughout its lifespan. Like they've always kind of supported Nintendo, so it makes sense they'd have a good relationship. But giving an indie studio with, I'm not sure what their track record is beyond Crypt the Necrodancer, but I don't think it's very large.
Game.
That's what I thought.
Only game. It was obviously it got a whole lot of critical praise from every reviewer who got their hands on it. But that's another thing. Like this studio doesn't have a giant track record. They basically have the one game, and that was enough. Their development style was enough that Nintendo of Japan, not Nintendo of America. Think about that. This is not like NOA saying we think we should do this. This is Nintendo of Japan saying we like your game, we like your style, and we like this idea of adding Zelda characters to this franchise. But let's do one better. Make a whole new game. Your second game should be a Legend of Zelda game. Could you imagine? Oh my God, what's that studio that just made that we just talked about them not too long ago during the last direct that they are making a Metroidvania. Was it
Team Cherry with Hollow Knight? They made the Hollow Knight Silk Song now?
No. It was like that cross between
Bloodstained Control of the Night by the original Castlevania creator.
Could you imagine if they allowed them to develop an actual 2D Metroid game?
I would be down.
I feel like the possibilities are now endless because Nintendo is willing to take risks with their IP that they have never, ever. I didn't think in my lifetime I would see Nintendo taking these kind of risks.
Like, this is the Nintendo we like to see, going back like months when we were talking about how, Nintendo doing the cereal boxes in the theme parks, they don't really do that anymore, but they're starting to, and it's a very good direction for Nintendo.
Yeah, aside from these games being awesome in and of themselves, they just open a lot more possibilities, and that's what's really exciting. What can we see in the future because of games like this? Now, granted, they have to be good games. Like that has to be the first and foremost. They have to be good games. Mario Rabbids was a fantastic game. It is probably the best RPG on the Switch right now, from a third-party developer. Octopath Traveler is doing a really good job of like putting a pin in that. But right now, Mario Rabbids is currently my favorite RPG on the Switch. Starlink Battle for Atlas, while not as good, the Star Fox content was just great, and they're adding more to the game. So all that stuff is cool. But now, The Legend of Zelda, third party, if this game is good, Nintendo will continue to take risks like this, and I like it.
This also means that we're getting like a third Zelda game on the Switch. So we already have Breath of the Wild, and then we have Link's Awakening coming, and now we're getting a rhythm-based Zelda.
And aside from that, the actual Eiji Aonuma and his team are currently working on the follow-up to Breath of the Wild, which I would assume it's going to come out on the Switch as well, simply because I guarantee you they're going to be reusing that game engine that they built for Breath of the Wild. So probably within by 2021, we might see a new Zelda title from the main studio.
Yeah, I feel like we'll get that announced in 2021, and then I'll get at least one delay. There's Zelda games, the main ones get delayed a lot, which is it's kind of a bad thing. It's an assurance of quality, but it's not good at the same time. But one thing I kind of want to talk about, let me actually check. Yeah, so with our previous two topics we just covered, I really think that this is the direction that the whole industry will move to, where the industry has to kind of work together where they can. I'm thinking that a lot of these sort of ideas, for new games are not necessarily all done and used up. We're still seeing plenty of games, but it's the big way forward, I think, for all the big studios is to play nice, get your games on this system, get your characters and IPs crossed over in some way. I think that's the future, where we start to see all of these different companies really not merge, but give permission to do these things. And I think Nintendo's definitely leading that charge with their experience with Super Smash Brothers. We see Sakurai has plenty of resources, connections to get him these characters he wants in Super Smash Brothers. And that's going to be huge for Nintendo later on down the line. And I think it's a very smart move to be able to get these indie studios, to let them take these IPs, let Ubisoft, let all these cooperative efforts happen.
Sure that. Now, before we move on from this topic, was there anything else from the Nindy showcase that actually really stuck out to you? For me, Red Lantern was like a highlight.
That's what I was going to talk about
Like
next. Red Lantern.
The Iditarod theme of that game, and that was a really fantastic trailer. Man, that looks
the trailer
like
gave me chills.
That looks
It
like
gave
one
me
of those
chills.
games that's gonna win like the that one game award that they have, the Impact Award.
Impact,
that looks like
yeah.
a nominee for the Impact Award
For sure.
straight up. And I'm like, that game looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It sucks though that one of the dogs died in the trailer. Like the bear comes and then the next scene you see her riding on the sled and there's a dog missing. Like, oh god, the bear ate it.
Well, that's like, isn't it supposed to be like multiple scenarios? So that's one of the many scenarios that can happen. So not necessarily will happen on your playthrough or one of your playthroughs, which is just crazy in itself. But then the other game I think that really stuck out to me, I think there are a couple, but this is the big one, is A Creature in the Well.
The pinball game.
Yes, the pinball game. It's a adventure top-down kind of pinball game. And coming off of, Yoko's Island Express, just general sort of pinball, a little bit of the Senran Kagura Peach Ball, pinball's, when it's implemented into other genres, is always such a good time. And I don't know what it is, but pinball in things where pinball isn't normally found is a lot of fun. And even like little bonus like pinball stages can have their own charm.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm really excited to see where that goes. It looks probably better than Yoko's Island Express. It's obviously a completely different genre, being Yoko's a 2D Metroidvania side scroller, but I feel like this is the pinball game for me right here.
Oh, I'd also be remiss if I didn't talk about the Stranger Things like 8-bit game.
Yeah,
that's supposed to like tie directly into the third season. Also coming out the same day as the third season's premiere. Looks cheesy, but it could be a lot of fun. It's got like, it gives me kind of the Ghostbuster of the game vibe. Very interesting. But yeah, I thought the Indies Direct as a whole, or an Indies Showcase, was actually fairly good. I mean, there wasn't like a major heavy hitter like we saw with like a Travis Strikes Again. Nothing super anticipating that we were super anticipating, but there was obviously Cuphead and Cadence of Hyrule. Those are two big heavy hitters that I think we all need to like keep our eyes on. I don't remember the release date for Cadence of Hyrule, but Cuphead coming out next month, so that's super exciting. All right, so with that said, I think it's time to go ahead and move on to our next topic. So, gotta pull that up. Okay. Cuphead show notes. There we go. All right, so moving on to our next story. The Wall Street Journal reported on Monday that there are 2 possible variations of the Nintendo Switch that are going to be announced later this year. One of them being a portable-only console. We talked about this 2 weeks ago.
I think, yeah, fairly recently.
Like, literally 2 weeks ago in our last episode, like, what kind of hardware revisions could the Nintendo Switch be getting? And, needless to say, I am not surprised. But I'm also very wary. Like, this is very much in the rumor. I think that what bothers me about this rumor right now is the possibility of 3 separate SKUs for the Nintendo Switch. I would be more inclined to believe in an era where we have 2 different variations of the Switch, one being the current iteration that we currently have, and one being an all portable version with Joy-Cons that are detachless. But that being said, very interesting. Any particular thoughts on possibly 3 Switches in the market?
No, I don't think that it's going to happen. At least not very soon. I think I mentioned this the 2 weeks ago when you discussed it originally, but it's way too soon to have this. I think everyone's just kind of like trying to predict that there will be a new Switch and that there's going to be a portable one, or there's going to be a premium one, or pro whatever, because all these consoles have pros now. They all have whatever, and the Switch is the hot item, so people want to sort of anticipate like that eventually there will be one. That's all the console makers have. Nintendo's no stranger to it, and so they're just, I think, jumping the gun. I mean, as far as the rumor here goes from Wall Street Journal, I still don't think it's going to happen. As far as the 3 total, I think it was always kind of something that when talked about, a Switch Mini or a Switch Pro, I think it was always kind of like, yeah, they could do both, that just seems unlikely to me, at least right now. It's still just too early. The Switch itself is still doing fine. You don't need 2 more. You only need 1 every so often now. Then you're just competing with yourself on so many different fronts. It just doesn't make sense to me. Oh.
Yeah, I also don't like the terminology used in the article, like there being a budget version that removes like HD rumble from one of the models. Like I know HD rumble hasn't been utilized to the highest degree yet, but man, in games like Mario Odyssey, it's really noticeable in like the craziest ways. Like when you're in that beach kingdom where the water is carbonated,
you can feel the carbonation
bubbles. You can feel the bubbles. Yeah, it is something that when I felt it in that game, like I lit up just because you felt it so perfectly, and it vibrated from like the bottom of the controller all the way up, like when you jumped in the water, and it would just gradually stay there. I thought all that was cool. So to lose HD Rumble as a feature would bum me out personally. But the Switch Pro one is the one that like really. I don't know if I like these rumors, man. I think ultimately that's what I want to boil this down to, is like I could totally see them doing a non-docking version of the Switch. I can see that as a possibility, but I just don't think it would be losing like the feature.
HD Rumble.
Yeah, I don't think they would lose HD Rumble. It means
that's
a lot.
Unbelievable to me. Oh, they've been trying to integrate that, so there's a lot of games that kind of require it for certain sections, for finding hidden items in Mario Party, which I guess without the Joy-Cons, you don't really get the ability to do it, to play Mario Party at all, but you would do that sort of Rumble, half the mini games like are Rumble based in that game. It doesn't make sense to me that they would lose HD Rumble, as well as how do you get rid of HD Rumble? It's a feature of the controllers, not of the system itself, to my knowledge, right?
Yeah. And the concept of a pro console, that's actually, the more I think about it, it's not foreign for Nintendo to release upgraded hardware. Like especially if we look at the 3DS as a primer point, the 3DS did get pretty big hardware revisions when they moved on to the new 3DS. Like we saw a faster processor in the new 3DS. We saw more stable Wi-Fi connections in that iteration of the system. We got the addition of the nub, the nipple, or whatever you want to call it, the
extra circle nub.
Yes. So
there's also additional shoulder buttons too that no one ever talks about or uses.
Yes. That's the kind of hardware revision that I would expect to see from the Switch. If there is a pro version of the Switch, if there is a dockless version of the Switch, I think it would be more in line with whatever they think this pro version of the Switch might be. It would be dockless, but it would maintain the features that the Switch has, and it might actually include a better processor so that the portable mode isn't as hindered as when you play certain games in portable mode. Like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the perfect.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah,
the perfect example
of that recently.
Playing that game in handheld mode on the current iteration of the Switch is pretty bad. But if you're going to make an exclusively portable version of the Nintendo Switch, then you're gonna need to
get a better battery, better processor to handle that.
Exactly. So I think this pro version of the Switch will be a dockless version, but that better processor will mean that it's able to output those graphics and run the game better. That's
in
what
portable mode. Yes,
exactly, because it will only be a portable. I don't think Nintendo will shoot themselves in the foot with a lackluster version of a portable console. Like Nintendo nails portable consoles. Let's just be honest. Nintendo nails portable consoles. Like, and their hardware revisions for portable consoles take even bigger leaps and bounds. This budget switch that they're talking about sounds like complete and utter BS to me. Nintendo doesn't take those kind of steps. They don't. They take steps forwards, not backwards. So yeah, I am not giving a whole lot of credence to this rumor, but I guess we will find out around the time of E3. Maybe there'll be another direct beforehand or a separate video that they release that showcases the potential, of new Switch hardware. But as it stands right now, I'm gonna take this rumor. I'm gonna just put it off to the side. I don't give it a whole lot of credence. That being said, though, this is the Wall Street Journal. This is a very credible news outlet.
Yeah, it tears me a bit. Yeah, I really don't believe it because of my gut, but it's a credible source. You're right.
Yeah, that's what makes this particular one hard to talk about, because when it comes to like credibility, the Wall Street Journal is like really up there. But then like the audacity of the rumor of there being like a budget version. Like, granted, the 2DS might be considered a budget version of the 3DS, but I don't know, man. There's something about the form factor of the first 2DS that actually, I know people made fun of it, doorstop model, but it actually, if you've played a regular 2DS, it feels better than playing on a 3DS.
Yeah, agreed.
That form factor, that tablet form factor, and the way it peters down to a point feels really good. It feels really good in your hands. Anyhow,
everyone I know who has a 2DS and a 3DS prefers the original 2DS.
I agree. Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I actually prefer the way the 2DS felt over the 3DS, and obviously you're not worried about the clamshell breaking, and it felt durable. It didn't feel cheap. Like, it felt good. I enjoyed the 2DS, and yeah, the 2DS XL is a marked improvement if you want something more in line with the traditional 3DS. But ultimately, I preferred the standard 2DS over the new 2DS XL. All right. But with that said, moving on to our final news story. I love this time of year. It is that time of year where the nominees for the Video Game Hall of Fame have been announced, and this year Nintendo has some big hitters in the categories to be nominated. Super Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Melee Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo and Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube, and they are among some pretty good competition. The other games that were nominated were Candy Crush, Centipede, Colossal Cave Adventure, Dance Dance Revolution, Half-Life, Microsoft Windows Solitaire, Mortal Kombat, Myst, NBA 2K, and Sid Meier's Civilization. For the most part, this is really good company. I think the only game here that's kind of like the outlier is Candy Crush.
Candy Crush, and I get the importance, but the Microsoft Solitaire, like it's like so popular. Everyone knows it. Everyone's played it at some point, but it's just Solitaire.
True. But yeah, I mean, those might be the only outliers there. I think everything else has a legitimate chance of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. But that being said, Nintendo has two nice ones this year. Like, I think if neither of these games gets selected, that would be a damn shame.
I feel like Melee is gonna get in just because it's being cut from a lot of the major events, like Evo. It's cut from Evo now. I think this is the time, like, Melee is gonna retire and it's gonna move to the Hall of Fame. I'm calling it. This is the time, let it retire, let it have a legacy in the Hall of Fame, and they just don't touch it ever again.
Well, I think what's really nice about this year versus the prior years is that this is the first time where the audience can vote. Normally, these games are voted on by a panel of video game journalists and whatnot. And I'm not saying they haven't done a fair job of inducting, inducting the games that they've done. But for the first time ever, we have a vote. So I implore you guys, if you want either Super Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. Melee to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, take a few seconds out of your day, log into the Video Game Hall of Fame's website. It's worldvideogamehalloffame.org, and vote for either of the games, or vote for whatever game you actually think deserves a space in the Hall of Fame. Like, the Hall of Fame isn't like, it's not that old. I think this is only like the 4th year that they've been running it. So it's nice to have these recognitions. And any game that gets inducted into the Video Game Hall of Fame, they take measures to preserve that game. So they get like development documents, they get original hardware, they get the software, obviously, and they take those things and they preserve them. So it's a really good cause. We've talked about this a lot on this podcast, is the preservation of video game history. That's important because the more digital that things continue to go from here on out, the least likely it will be for things to get preserved. Like, once Splatoon servers shut down, that game is inaccessible. The same thing applies for games like Destiny. Once those servers are done, you cannot play those games in their original format. So we have to find ways to preserve the older generation of games and start thinking of ways to preserve the newer games. Those are really important.
I think they talked about this in, was it, I think E3, with they announced like Arcade Archives Donkey Kong, I want to say, and then they talked a bit about like the original, Donkey Kong arcade and the development and how they had preserved some machines. Does that ring a bell? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember something about it, but I don't remember the exact details.
Yeah, but I thought that was super cool how they kind of like preserved the like original machine, and then they had like some documents and some like they had like relics of it, which was super cool to me. Beyond that, I think it's definitely important that we do vote that it is now available to us. That's super cool. I think there's potential that it could be skewed for some reason or another. Like if Fortnite's not on the list, but I feel like if Fortnite was like on the list, it would probably be on for sure because it's just got so much hype and buzz around it. One other game that I remember that I do kind of find weird is Dance Dance Revolution.
I definitely think Dance Dance Revolution has a spot in this.
I definitely do. It just doesn't have that kind of legacy that I kind of associate with a lot of games, or the impact. It's definitely cool and unique, and it has its reign in its own
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
From like the year 2000 to 2003, Dance Dance Revolution was.
You're right.
It was the new hotness, man. Like that game.
Yeah, I played it a lot.
Had a strong fan base. People who didn't even actually just play video games played Dance Dance Revolution. It was very impactful, and it helped kind of stave off the complete and utter demise of the American arcade for a few years. Like the American arcades got to hang on a little bit longer because. No,
that's fair. You're right.
The first one came out in 1998, and it pretty much just kept arcades in float because remember 1998 fighting games were starting to die around that time, and then you got this big cabinet coming in, and it just helped stave off the ultimate death of the arcade just a little bit longer here in the West. So I think it did have its impact.
Okay, you got me. I admit I am wrong.
So yeah, I think it's important, guys. Vote. At the very least, if you pay attention to this news story, because again, like I said, the strong take, the people who do the Hall of Fame. This museum takes great, pride in preserving these games for future generations. So yeah, very important.
And then definitely like these are some big hitters for Nintendo, as we've been saying. I've already kind of joked about, Melee started moving on, but like you can't have a lot of that legacy with Melee. You have just how big of a game it was to like a casual audience and the competitive scene. But then Super Mario Kart, the first of many Mario Karts to come, and it still is. It holds up.
It does.
It's not as smooth I guess is the word, as today's Mario Karts, but it definitely still holds up.
Honestly, my favorite Mario Kart. I'm sorry, the sprites you utilized in Super Mario Kart are my favorite in any Mario Kart to date. There's something about the way that the characters look in Super Mario Kart that is extraordinarily appealing to me. And even when they did like the Game Boy Advance version, and it looked more in line with Mario Kart 64, I was a little bummed out because I was like, oh, I would have preferred if they had the classic 2D sprites. So yeah, I mean, visually, it actually, as far as the character representation is concerned, I think it does the characters the best, and especially for its era, for when it came out.
Okay.
So yeah, I really did appreciate the visuals of that game a whole lot. And
There's not many.
It's a lot of fun, man.
There's not a lot of racers, I think, if any, nowadays that have sort of 2D sprite work to make that sort of 3D racing game work. It's just not done nowadays. But these are games with quite a big legacy. Super Mario Kart gave us every other Mario Kart, and then Melee, obviously not the first, it's the second, but it's one of the bigger ones of its series.
Well, I think that's the one that set the direction for the entire franchise. Like the first game is an entry point, but Melee is the game that showcased what the franchise would be going forward.
I kind of feel like Brawl was more that, honestly. Even though Brawl has its flaws, Brawl was the one where we got Snake and Sonic, where it truly became that crossover.
But from a mechanical standpoint, it was taking steps back.
Yes, I agree. But I feel like from the concept of making a game, I think it was probably the first instance of, this is a celebration of all of Nintendo and all of, the rivalry between Sonic and Mario and Snake. I don't know where he really fit in, but he was cool to see, seeing Snake. There's not really a rivalry between Konami and Nintendo, but I feel like, with all the trophies they had, the Subspace Emissary, that really felt like that was the direction of the collaborative celebration of gaming. That direction. Mechanically, I don't think that matters because it's a mess. But
I don't
know.
Well, aside from the Nintendo releases here, some of the games here that were nominated, man, they're super impressive. Like Myst is like the first computer game I ever played. It's straight up.
It's impactful.
It is the first computer game I've ever played, and that game still holds up. Like from like a story aspect, it just holds up. Now, granted, visually it doesn't, but there have been so many like graphical revisions of Myst. I think there's even one on the 3DS, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, there is. I was about to say that. I was going to say my first game on the computer was, I think, Putt Putt Goes to the Moon, and then after that was like Pajama Sam. Sorry, I don't know why I said Sam. So those are my two first computer games. But I did go and play the Myst version of the 3DS version of Myst, which was cool. It was very impactful sort of mystery exploration, which was super cool. Definitely unique, definitely akin to its era. But I did sell my copy. Unfortunately, it's either still in the GameStop somewhere, or it is in some kid's hands or some person's collection now.
And obviously, we have Mortal Kombat here on the list. And man,
oh yes,
that first Mortal Kombat game, man. What can we say about that game that hasn't already been said by countless other people? This game is
changed a lot.
Well, not only that, it is directly responsible for the creation of the ESRB.
Yeah,
like this game should be.
It changed a lot.
Like it should be in the Hall of Fame, just based off of that caveat alone. It shouldn't even need to be inducted into Hall because of what it did for the industry as a whole, or did to the industry as a whole. It deserves a spot of preservation. I mean, obviously it doesn't. It's not just Mortal Kombat itself that can take all the credit. Obviously, games like Night Trap also helped in that aspect. But also, you look at Mortal Kombat. We had Senate hearings in this country, in America, about this game and the impact that it was having on the youth of America. Like this game is very important to the video game industry Now we have the 11th iteration of this game
Coming next
out.
month,
Yeah,
right?
next
Yeah.
month.
Wild. I feel like it was just announced. Like it was just announced like December.
Yeah.
What?
So if you look at this game, like not only has it like stood the test of time, but
It stood Senate hearings.
Yeah, it's impact worthy, man. This game definitely deserves its spot as a nominee, if not a guaranteed spot. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 11. Or I'm sorry, Mortal Kombat is really important to video game history. Aside from that, Half-Life is an amazing game. Obviously, like Valve knocked it out of the park when they did this game. Not one of my favorite games, just because I'm garbage at it, but it is a fun game nonetheless. So many good nominees this year. Honestly, I think this one's going to be one of the more hotly contested than it was in previous years. I mean, we look at previous years, like last year, like Donkey Kong was on the induction list. Like, come on, Donkey Kong was getting in. Like there were games that they announced last year that were just guaranteed. And I start looking at the games on this list, and I'm like, oh, there's a lot more competition this time around because you have Mario Kart and Melee. Then you also have Half-Life. It's going to be a hotly contested nomination or induction process. All right.
So hear me out here. Valve already knows that they've won, right? And so they're gonna announce Half-Life 3 finally. When Half-Life gets into it'll happen. Trust me, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that and Portal 3. Yeah.
Half-Life 3. Give us Portal 3. Give us Left 4 Dead 3, please.
You know the joke, man.
Please.
You know the joke. Valve can't count to 3, man.
I know the joke, but like it's got to happen. I've waited so long. I know that they're aware here too. Like they're not going to make it. They're going to call it like 2.9 or something.
It'll just be a remake with one extra stage.
I mean, I believe it, but I wouldn't cry. I would be happy. I'll take what I can get here, man. I will take what I can get.
I think it's important that Candy Crush not get inducted, guys. I think we should draw the line on Candy Crush.
I feel like it's going to be a surprisingly strong contender. I mean, similar to that Fortnite argument I was making.
With the fact that this is the first year where the fans can vote, yeah, Candy Crush has a very wide audience.
Real chance, yeah.
Centipede is a great game. If you haven't played Centipede, get on it.
They made a 3DS remake, which was kind of but
I love games that utilize the rollerball. I love those. Like I know that it's stupid. It's basically just like a cue ball in an arcade cabinet, but those are always so much fun. I love those. So yes, let's get Centipede up on there. But that's it, guys. Again, make your votes count. Let's all vote for this because I'm super excited for a lot of these games to get put on, to get inducted. I want them to be preserved. Especially, the arcade cabinets like Dance Dance Revolution and Centipede. But it'd be nice to go to a museum and see those in a museum just because of the audacity of a game of video games being in museums. I love it. And for those who haven't seen it, you guys, you need to watch Blues' video where he went to the video game museum in Texas because it's a great video, and that is how you preserve video games.
Yeah, they did a great job. They preserved eras. Like they had the bedroom and the living room. They also had a small little arcade section as well.
Exactly. Yep, I loved it. That's one of my favorite videos up on the channel. If you guys haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. Because video game preservation is important to us, and it should be important to you. All right. But with that said, guys, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and when we come back, we're going to address the elephant in the room, and that's Sony's State of Play from this past Monday. What are our thoughts on Sony's State of Play and how it compares to a Nintendo Direct? Don't go anywhere because you're going to find out when we come back. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Nintendo Power Zone. If you are just joining us, we just wrapped up our Powered Up news. But before we go any further, we have a breaking news story. Burger King has secured the rights for the Detective Pikachu film, which makes it the first time in a long time since Burger King has promoted a Pokemon movie. If you guys were around in 1999, you will realize that Burger King had the best Pokemon tie-in to date. They had 151 separate toys over the course of like a month and a half. One of the best kids meals ever, just ever, period. 151 toys. And obviously there was a little bit of controversy with the kids suffocating on Pokeballs, but that's their own damn fault for being dumb. But Nintendo Wire just released images of the Detective Pikachu tie-ins. So that's going to include Detective Pikachu themed Burger King cardboard crowns.
Ooh, okay.
They've also shown off some of the figures. They've shown off at least 6 figures. We don't know if there's any more at this point. But of the 6 figures, we have the following. We have, obviously, Detective Pikachu.
Yes.
We have a Bulbasaur.
Yes.
We have Loudred.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Arcanine.
Okay.
Psyduck.
Yes.
And Mewtwo.
Mr. Mime. Come on. Mr. Mime.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be more. We don't know everyone that's out yet.
I need to take a look at this Bulbasaur, though. Hang on. Burger King Bulbasaur figure. Hello?
It's on NintendoWire.com, so they even have a little bit of a video for it. So this is super exciting. Now, obviously, these are kids' meal toys. I don't expect them to look fantastic. The Psyduck one is actually kind of creeping me out. Looks like Howard the Duck. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be spending a few bucks at Burger King to just to kind of like relive the moments of when I was a kid and I was collecting the Pokemon Happy Meals. So yeah, this is cool news. Really excited about that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and slide into our topic.
Okay. He looks kind of just like a normal anime Bulbasaur, not like the movie Bulbasaur with the fun eyes.
I didn't look that hard to picture.
The Psyduck looks like a bit like the movie though. But Bulbasaur just looks like an anime Bulbasaur, which is not what I was hoping.
I think I see scales there.
On Bulbasaur, yeah, like there's different like details that you wouldn't see in the anime, but like where's the cute little face?
Well, Pikachu has his cute little Sherlock Holmes hat.
I mean, yeah, but other than that, what else has he got?
Ultimately, though, I hope they do more than just these 6. I hope it's like a whole bunch and that these are just the first 6 that are leaking.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go ahead. Let's jump into our topic because we have an interesting topic. So let's go ahead and read it off. So Sony did a state of play. And for years, Sony has downplayed the significance of E3, saying that it no longer reflects the needs of the video game industry. They started revealing more and more of their games at the PlayStation Experience events. That's where we obviously saw Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite for the first time. We start to see things like the Last of Us trailers get revealed there, etc., etc. They're starting to showcase more of the games there. But as of Monday, Sony tried something new. They announced a State of Play event, and it functions identically to a Nintendo Direct. So today we're going to discuss whether or not Sony's first attempt at a Nintendo Direct is as good as an actual Nintendo Direct. Right off the bat, I want to start by saying that visually it was very similar to the new style of Nintendo Directs where they do things in bullet points. What I feel like they lacked was charm. When a Nintendo Direct starts, they usually start with a big reveal trailer, which is what Sony did. They had a big reveal trailer, but immediately after the reveal, we're greeted with an Iwata or a Reggie or a Bill. There's always a personality from Nintendo that takes center stage and starts talking about what we should expect within the Direct. What that does, in my opinion, is it brings a certain charm to the Direct. It makes the Direct feel personal.
It's directly to you, as I want to put it.
What the major difference I noticed here was Sony went for announcement after announcement after announcement. Like Now they did have a host whose face was unseen. She had a nice voice. She spoke very nicely during but the lack of with no presence. She had no presence within the video, which makes it really hard to connect to the experience. Like there's no charm to it. But aside from that, from a visual aspect, I thought it was very similar to a Nintendo Direct, to the point where Nintendo Direct was trending during the State of Play's live stream.
Despite there was no Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, at first
it was all just in spite of, honestly, I feel like.
It was weird because I had forgotten about the State of Play. I didn't watch it live. I was working, and I got all these like notifications for a Nintendo Direct on my Twitter feed, and I was like, there was no Nintendo Direct announced. I'd be at home doing a live reaction if there was. But yeah, needless to say, visually, I thought it was very similar to a Nintendo Direct.
I mean, yeah, visually it definitely is. As with the whole bullet points, like the sort of like the format where it grays out one, then switches to another. That was like, I feel like that was pulled from maybe one of the previous ones, not like all of them, but maybe one of them had that format, I want to say, with the presentation layout.
Most of the new ones are going in that route, with where it's like very bullet pointy.
Yeah.
Aside from that, there's unlike a Direct, there was like a kind of a clear focus with their first State of Play as well. Like most of the time, a Nintendo Direct kind of divvies its time between the Switch and the 3DS. Now, obviously, this last Direct that we had was extraordinarily focused on the Switch. But it looks like the Switch hardware is going to be the primary hardware going forward. I mean, it was only a matter of time before the 3DS began its eventual fade. So, we normally see, both. This time we didn't, but this State of Play was very focused on the VR hardware.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Like almost every game they announced had a VR aspect to it, and they
started with a VR Iron Man.
I ultimately found that to be disheartening. I think they've only sold something like 2 million PSVR headsets, and what is that? And how many PS4s have been sold?
I don't know, but they're appealing to a very small audience of their entire audience, though, which I think was the big first mistake.
Yes. So PSVR sales are at 4 million. That's less than 5% of PlayStation owners. Less than 5% of the hardware owners own a PSVR, and that's who the major focus of the State of Play was geared towards. Now, I don't think that's a bad strategy, but then you start to look at like you're only appealing to the smallest audience that you have, like not necessarily the best way to start off your new initiative.
And then there weren't like a lot of actual announcements. There was the first of the like Iron Man announcement, which was that was cool. And then there's like a bunch of games we kind of like already knew about. We got No Man's Sky, which at this point is like a 3-year-old game that flopped at first and is only now becoming good. We got Days Gone. Is it Days Gone?
We've known about Days Gone for 4 years.
Yeah, it's not out yet, so it needs the news still, but we know about it. Like, you don't need to like make a big deal about it, which that was like one of the bigger deals, I thought. I think one of the nicest announcements to come out of there was the Concrete Genie announcement.
That's the only game that really stood out to me, and that game is beautiful. It really is. But at the same time, am I not the only person here that got Epic Mickey vibes?
Yeah, no, I was thinking that's how Epic Mickey should have been when I was watching that.
Yeah,
agreed.
I think it was the story looks fantastic. The art style looks very much like Coraline or The Nightmare Before Christmas or any one of those like Tim Burton-esque movies where he does the stop motion animation.
I just wish my big issue with the art style, that it looks great and I compare it to that, but the lips don't look quite right. Is my only real issue with the art style. Like, you look at Coraline, like lips work like lips should in that. These lips don't look good. They just look they're drawn on, kind of floaty, and don't really move right.
But like as far as visually, that's the closest thing I can kind of nail it down to. It's very much in line with like those kind of movies. But the story looks fantastic. Like the way the world looks is great. Like the visuals of painting the graffiti onto the buildings, all that looks tremendous. That's probably the highlight of the state of play.
If they announced Ape Escape 4, that would have been the highlight. It's never gonna happen, but I'm always gonna want it. Like,
well, I think another thing that bothered me was about this was in comparison to a Nintendo Direct. Nintendo Directs primarily focus on first-party software. The thing that we got here was we saw a lot of games that are going to be multi-platform titles. So obviously, Five Nights at Freddy VR is going to appear on other VR platforms. It's going to be on the Vive and Oculus as well as Steam. Let's see. No Man's Sky getting VR support is not important. Crash Team Racing is going to be on every platform. It's going to be on the on the Switch even.
It just won't have those like skins at all, right? That's the big issue. Which I kind of like them. I kind of gonna miss them a bit, but it won't stop me from getting the Switch instead.
I'm okay without them. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Mortal Kombat 11, which was like a pretty good focus for them. That's how they closed the state of play, was with Mortal Kombat 11. It's also a multi-platform title, and I don't think they showed off anything that's going to be exclusive to the PlayStation. So
no, I think so the biggest issue was the fact it's the same issue that Sony kind of has just competing with Nintendo and that Microsoft just has in general, where you know, you look at what sells the consoles, the games are what sells the consoles. Who's the strongest in games? Nintendo. They have games like Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey leading this charge, and they have a lot of exclusives. You know, you don't get those games on other platforms. And then that's why Xbox is kind of the lowest in terms of console sales, is it doesn't have that big of a focus on games, or at least exclusives that you can't get anywhere else, with Sony being the middle ground with, you know, they got a couple. They got God of War, they got Spider-Man, they got Horizon Zero Dawn. They have a fair bit of exclusives that are good, that people like, they sell systems, etc. And that's what sort of keeps them afloat. But there's definitely not enough of this in the presentation, because there's just not enough of them on the console to make the presentation warrant it.
Yeah, I think what's kind of telling is that like they really only showed off 2 games that are exclusive to the primary hardware. The primary hardware being the PlayStation 4 itself, not the VR attachment. Like, and that was Concrete Genie and Days Gone. Now, Concrete Genie, like we said earlier, it's a nice surprise, but we've known about Days Gone for 4 years. In fact, the game should have been out by now. It's been delayed a few times, to the point where I've almost lost interest in the game. I'm still gonna buy it. But the interest
I'll wait for a price cut.
The interest I had has dwindled significantly. Honestly, I feel like what Sony should be showing off with the state of play are things like The Last of Us 2. We have, there's a large investment in the Last of Us franchise. A large investment. It is the best game of the previous generation. On any platform, The Last of Us is the best game on any platform last hardware generation.
I want to argue that, but I can't, because it's kind of a fact, so I can't argue it.
So I think the fact that you announced this sequel, I think when you announce an event like this, like a state of play, your version of the Nintendo Direct, this is what we're anticipating seeing. We're anticipating The Last of Us, and on top of that, you guys are you've opted out of E3 this year, which means that these state of plays become vital as a method of communication between you and your audience. Nintendo started the Nintendo Direct back in 2011.
Yes, in October. Mid-October.
So with that, they also minimized their E3 presence.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped doing stage shows at E3, but they've maintained a presence at E3 because E3 is still vitally important to the industry. Now, the significance of E3, it does get a little bit less and less each year, especially the more open to the public it becomes. Now that it's not just a trade show, now that fans can experience E3 as well, its actual significance is a little bit less than it has been in previous years. But at the same time, it's still really important to utilize E3 to showcase the games that you have, the things that you're bringing to the table. After this first state of play, what it actually makes me think is that Sony didn't have much to show in general. That's what it makes me feel like. Why we're really not going to E3 is because what we have on the horizon
isn't ready.
It's not up to snuff. It's not E3 caliber. Like Iron Man VR. I don't think it's that impressive, especially coming off of Spider-Man PS4. Like, it's cool that you have another Marvel exclusive, but this doesn't necessarily look like the best exclusive on the list, you know?
Like, if you're looking at Marvel exclusives, that new Switch one, I'm forgetting the name. It's Ultimate Alliance. Thank you.
Ultimate Alliance 3 looks like a better Marvel exclusive right now than Iron Man VR.
But maybe not also at the same peak of Spider-Man PS4.
Yeah.
So you're at a weird balance where you have this one really amazing game, and you have a pretty solid, very solid looking game on the Switch, and then you have a very niche VR experience that looks okay. It looks okay, you know?
I think another thing to probably make note of is the fact that Sony actually had a pretty lackluster E3 last year. Like, their E3 last year was weird.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Yes. They had the changing venues for a specific game, and even there they showed off 2 games that we knew about. Being Sekiro and what was the other one?
I don't even know.
It was Spider-Man. Yeah, they did a whole segment on Spider-Man and a whole segment on Sekiro, and I'm like, both of those games are awesome, but we know about those games, and the only game of note during their E3 was The Last of Us
2. Yeah.
That was a great trailer and gameplay session that they had for that game. And we still have no release date or timetable as to when that game is going to be complete. And I think a lot of people, when the state of play was announced, I think that's the first thing that popped in everybody's head. Oh, they're going to show off something from The Last of Us. And they didn't show anything for The Last of Us. And you look at the way people have gravitated towards this event, and there's not that same kind of hype level that people get after like a Nintendo Direct. Like they didn't show anything they didn't show off anything that would specifically move the hardware going forward.
And that was one thing I wanted to also take note of. With at least most Nintendo Directs, you're given a sort of a strong start and a big oh my gosh at the end, at least for most of them that we've seen in recent years. And you get a couple like solid games here and there. It's with Sony, it was all just kind of mediocre, and I feel like the strongest stuff was kind of given weird times. Like the Concrete Genie was closer to the end, but also like at the tail end of the VR sort of stuff, where it's like they announce all this VR stuff. You get Concrete Genie, which does not look VR. And like, oh yeah, and this will be coming to VR eventually. We'll show you more of that later. And then you go into Days Gone, and then what they end with? It's so mediocre. I don't remember.
They ended on Mortal Kombat 11.
Yes. Okay.
Honestly, think about. I was actually anticipating them for them to say Days Gone VR. Like they were so focused on VR during this state of play that I anticipated for them to announce Days Gone VR at the end of that Days Gone segment of the thing. Comparing this to the last Nintendo Direct, we launched that last Nintendo Direct hard. They started with Super Mario Maker 2, and then they ended with
Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening. That's and in between there was a whole lot. Not everything in between was like blow your mind good. But
like Disney Tsum Tsum isn't something to write home about, but that was there, you know.
Yeah, there was enough in that direct outside of those two games to get people pretty amped. Like obviously we saw Bloodstained again, and that was like the best look at the game we've gotten to that point, and that game looks amazing. We got some updates to Captain Toad. Like the stuff that's already existing is getting new updates. Like Nintendo really utilizes the time of a direct to their advantage, especially with that new bullet point method that they've been doing, where everything is done, where they quick fire every news event. Very similar to how the state of play was, but the difference is that there are things that they reveal that can move more pieces of hardware. I think obviously Super Mario Maker 2 is a game that can sell hardware. Link's Awakening can sell hardware.
I want to also talk about the fact using the Captain Toad, where they sort of they updated existing games. I thought, you take a look at a Nintendo Direct, and you see stuff like that happen like once a Direct, and then a lot of it is just announcements or new looks at. Whereas with this, I felt like a lot of it was just sort of like updates to existing things, and I wasn't sort of blown away by. Bless you. For those of you who aren't watching, he just sneezed. But I feel like there was a lot of focus on updates to things as well. So with I lost my train of thought. with oh my gosh,
Captain Toad.
Yeah, not Captain Toad. The Sony
Crash?
No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky. This is a game that's been out for 3 years now. It's just getting a new update, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but I've had this game for 3 years. And so it's there was a lot more of that I think there should have been. There wasn't a lot of announced games, and you really didn't have a good strong start or a good end. They were kind of mediocre throughout. And one thing that bugged me personally, as someone who doesn't follow a lot of these games, with the announcer, they didn't really explain a lot. So I'm looking at half of these games, and they're like revealing things through the trailers, but they don't really take time to say like, this is exactly what's been revealed. Like if I was like had bad vision, like I didn't have my glasses on, let's say, I wouldn't have known there were new costumes being revealed in the Crash Bandicoot game.
That was very confusing to me at first, because they didn't make it even seem like that was exclusive to the PlayStation version.
They didn't explain anything that was being announced.
Like, I'm right there with you. I feel like they didn't utilize the time well. Like, I think game-wise, they might have shown off a very similar number of games that the last Nintendo Direct showed off. The difference is that the Nintendo Direct was 10 minutes longer because they're taking that time to explain what is coming to each individual game.
Like I almost imagine if they talked about Captain Toad and said like they didn't mention that 2-player was coming. Not many people would actually realize, if they hadn't bought the game already, that the game didn't have 2-player before. Some people might not even realize that.
Well, exactly. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there. So yeah, like the state of play, I'm not thinking. Okay, I don't think it was a terrible event. I don't think Sony completely fucked up. There were really good things about the state of play. The pacing, like for the most part, I thought the pacing was good. The way that they very much did things like Nintendo bullet points. I like that. I like bullet points. The things that I think they should work on going forward is having some exposition for each game. It's okay for it to be 10 minutes longer if you expound upon every game and you make me aware of exclusive features, especially if it's a multi-platform title. Like, I need to know what's exclusive and what's not, because as of right now, up until we start recording, I didn't even realize that the skins were exclusive to the PS4. But I guess it makes sense considering that the first game was a PlayStation exclusive. But yeah, it didn't necessarily dawn on me that those might be exclusive to the hardware. Aside from that, I also don't think you want to focus so much on what is essentially less than 5% of your game playing audience. I think you have to be more broad. I think you have to appeal to the masses with these events. Obviously, if you're going to forego E3, you need to utilize these state of plays. They need to be more frequent. Maybe like one every 2 to 3 months. You definitely need to be more frequent than Nintendo Directs, because now this is our primary source of video game information for you going forward. We don't even know what this actually means for the PlayStation Experience events as a whole. Will Sony abandon the PlayStation Experience events, because those events are costly? Those aren't cheap. Like they have to rent venues, they have to build stages, they have to build they have to put props up. Like the state of play events, I'm sorry, the PlayStation Experience events, they were like E3 experiences that were solely focused on Sony stuff. Does the state of play nix the PlayStation Experience going forward? Does that kill them off? Like, because if that's the case, I feel like they're killing off one of their best events. Those PlayStation Experience events, they are really dedicated to like the fan experience. Is Sony moving away from that? Especially when they're the market leader like this, I feel like they can afford to take more risks like that. Like they can definitely do that more and do better at them. And I think they're already fantastic events. I hate to see them like cut those events out entirely. Especially if you're gonna not have a presence at E3. I think the state of play must go in conjunction with the PlayStation Experience.
Yeah, I agree, but I also feel like I think it's okay for them to have a sloppy start. It's the first one. I think they'll get better with time. They'll get more frequent. They'll learn, and the state of play will be something we can all enjoy eventually. I also think that this is a good thing for the industry. Maybe not right now as a game industry, but as a game news industry that you and I inhabit with this podcast. I think this is a good thing where we don't have such long news droughts before E3, and then all of a sudden we have too much stuff to cover at E3. I like how this will sort of break it up, and if more companies do follow suit, we can see more and more just announcements throughout the year. E3 becomes less of a big deal, and there's no more slow news days. Every news day is going to have at least something eventually. I think that's good because then the news isn't stagnant. I think game releases will happen more in the spring than they have been. I think game news, I think that's good for the health of the gaming year, at least from news, if not from the gaming perspective.
While you were speaking and I was listening,
yes,
and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I actually went back and I pulled up the very first Nintendo
Direct. Yep, I did too.
It kicks off with Reggie speaking directly to the audience. Nintendo first Direct didn't stumble out of the gate, and it closes with Skyward Sword. Like, granted, Skyward Sword, you take how you feel about that game aside, but we all hotly anticipated that game when we found out about it. So I think the first Nintendo Direct did a much better job right off the bat. Now that
it definitely did, but I'm willing to cut Sony some slack, even though it's like, I don't know. I understand it's the first outing for them, though. Just because Nintendo nailed it doesn't mean they are.
Yeah. Like I said, I agree with you. I think the state of play can grow into something that we thoroughly enjoy going forward. I think they need to take the lessons that they're going to be told. That's the thing about the world we live in now. Sony's not going to have to wait too long to be made aware of the potential mishaps that they had with this first event. People have been extraordinarily vocal on all social media platforms what they didn't like about the Nintendo Direct. I'm sorry, the state of play. By the same token, Nintendo learned those same lessons the exact same way. Social media made Nintendo very aware of what they liked and didn't like about Nintendo Directs, and it's gotten worse as time goes on. Obviously, like social media becomes a little bit more and more toxic with each passing year. But Sony will definitely be. I'm certain by this point, because it's been 2 days since the state of play, that they've been made very aware of their missteps with this first state of play.
But it also, are they welcome to that criticism? Are they willing to adjust? Or are they going to keep dropping the ball? Just because they hear the feedback doesn't mean that they will make the changes or that they can make those changes.
I think
so. We also have to see.
I think in the previous, who was the last president of Sony? Kaz Hirai?
I don't know. It beats me.
I think Kaz. I believe that's his name. He just retired. Yes, Kaz Hirai. Kazuo Kaz Hirai. The previous Sony president of the PlayStation brand, he was very open to listening to his audience. I think now that he stepped down, whoever's taking his place or whoever took his place, I hope that they were well groomed.
Like Doug Bowser?
Yes. And because Kaz Hirai was definitely integral into like the success of the PlayStation brand during the tail end of the PS3 era and going forward into the PS4 era. He was very vocal about listening to fans. He directly engaged with fans via social media and via the PlayStation blog account. And he was very like upfront with taking cues from the audience. Now, whether or not whoever's in charge now follows suit, I could not tell you. I'm not too familiar with who's taken over that role. But Kaz Hirai definitely would have been at the forefront of listening to the audience's concerns. We just have to hope that the mentality he left behind at Sony carries over. Like it's weird because we don't really talk a lot about Sony, so I don't really, or Xbox, so I don't put news about them at the forefront of my mind. I follow it very casually because we are very Nintendo focused here, and if I'm being honest, the amount of Nintendo news that we have to stay up to date on can be daunting sometimes. So this episode has been very difficult for me to find, to find the audience reaction to this to this state of play, to really engage myself in watching the state of play, because it impacts me far less than a Nintendo Direct would.
I have to agree with you there. It's harder because I'm not following the communities that would be reacting to this, and I unless they're announcing Ape Escape 4, I'm not really gonna pay attention to this.
So yeah, like I do enjoy this though. I do, enjoy the comparison between the two products, because they are products essentially. These are consumer products that we consume. We consume these.
Yeah, they are what the company is putting out they're like informational brochures essentially, but just video form.
And let it be known that while I am a Nintendo fanboy, I do enjoy video game experiences on other platforms. I enjoy VR as a platform. I enjoy obviously I enjoy Nintendo's platform. I enjoy playing games on my PlayStation. I think there are far fewer games that I enjoy playing on the PlayStation platform, because they don't always have the experiences that I want to play, but every now and then there are those games that I have to play. Like if they announce an Uncharted game, I'm there. They announce a Resident Evil game, there.
If they announce Ape Escape 4, I'm there. I'm with you in the same boat. There's not every experience on the PlayStation 4 is with me. It's on niche things like Spider-Man, Uncharted, and maybe God of War. If I'm feeling it.
Oh man, Spider-Man was like my game of 2018. Like, and there were a lot of great games in 2018, but Spider-Man was like one of my games of the year. Like, it was a fantastic game, and that was only available on the PlayStation 4 hardware, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Like, it was a great experience for me as a Spider-Man fan, if you can't tell by the shirt that I'm wearing right now.
I also just recently I got this. It's the Amazon version of the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, which is super cool, holographic.
I bought it digitally. I just did it. I didn't want to wait. There was like a 3-week wait between the DVD release and the movie actually being available. I was like, I can't wait. Buy it.
See, for me, I just don't own a lot of movies, but this was like a must own. Like, this is a pre-order movie. Like, that's how much I enjoyed it. I don't pre-order movies. Like, but I'm like, okay, you know what? It's worth the pre-order. I know I want to own this movie, so I'm pre-ordering it.
Yeah. Agreed. No, but yeah, there are experiences exclusive to the PlayStation that I gravitate to the hardware for, like Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts, and that's one of those things that I have to play on the PlayStation, console. At least those mainline games. Like there are experiences that on the PS4 that are hotly anticipated. But I think right now Sony is in like this weird place where they are the clear number one, and development is starting to slow down for their that platform. I think people are anticipating maybe a PlayStation 5, and maybe they're looking towards the future. And it just makes me think that Sony doesn't have a whole lot to show at E3, and that's the real reason why they even came up with the state of play as an idea. The reason they pulled out of E3, and I don't think they've announced the PlayStation Experience as of yet. But those usually happen around September, October. So yeah, we're still a ways off. We're only March. But ultimately, though, I don't think this was a terrible first state of play. I think it did appeal too much to the niche audience of PSVR owners. But ultimately, I think Sony will learn from that mistake, and they'll be much more broad going forward. I hope to see more of these in the near future, and I hope they take the Nintendo route, man. Just showcase a lot more indie games. Showcase some of your smaller first-party software, and hell, even show off new hardware on this platform. Like we know it's possible to showcase hardware in a Nintendo Direct. The Wii U was showcased in a Nintendo Direct. Like they did a whole Direct just dedicated to the Wii U. Granted, the Wii U is not the best system to showcase that, but they did it. They definitely did it.
I mean, there was even if you want to argue, the very first one we have pulled up here, it's a very early 3DS, and they didn't announce it, but they are going over it for the first couple of minutes. They talk about the base built-in features like Street Pass for a good amount of time.
Oh, they showcased like games like Super Mario 3D World or 3D Land. Like that's like the launch year. That's a launch year game for the 3DS. So like, yeah, that first Nintendo Direct, it's only 7 minutes, but I think they did a good job of nailing like everything in it. They showed off they showcased the hardware well. They showcased the things that are going to be on the hardware, and then they ended it with Skyward Sword being the swan song of the Wii. So yeah, I think Sony has a lot to learn, but I think if they do like at least 3 more of these this year, they'll have it nailed by the time they do like the third one.
Agreed.
So yeah, that being said, I don't think I have anything left to say on the state of play. So if you have nothing further to add, we can wrap this episode up.
Sony, make Ape Escape 4 happen. That's all I have to say, please. Or at least finally give us the port of Ape Escape 3. We have Ape Escape 2, but not 1 and not 3. And what are you doing? Like 2 is great, but the movie characters, of 3 were just so iconic to me as a kid. Like, but either give us 3 in addition to 2, or give us 4. Because come on.
All right. With that said, guys, if you enjoyed this show, there are numerous ways that you can watch and engage with the show. You can download new episodes on iTunes, stream new episodes on Stitcher Radio. You can also download episodes on Google Play Music, and we are now available on Spotify. So every major streaming platform. If you want to watch this show live, you can catch us right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Nintendo Power Zone. If you want to reach me, you can hit me up on Twitter at NyceOne983. You can email me at NyceOne983@gmail.com, and you can hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/Nintendo Power Zone. Go ahead, B.
You can find me on Twitter at BKingBlooz. Blues, as always, spelled BLOOZ. Same thing for my Twitch and my YouTube at BKingBlooz there as well.
All right, and guys, before we let you go, we are still running that contest for the Lucky Day Pikachu. All you have to do is subscribe to the Nintendo Power Zone and comment in our last episode of the podcast video. What is your favorite Pokemon movie moment? If you want to do it in this video, go ahead and do it in this video too. But remember, what is your favorite Pokemon movie moment? And subscribe to the channel. Aside from that, guys, we will be back in 2 weeks. So catch you on the flip side. Peace.